Story 2. The Whispering Shadows. I wasn't the most athletic person, but running helped me clear my mind. It was never about speed or endurance, just escape. Every evening, when the world began to quiet down, I'd lace up my shoes, slip on a hoodie, and run along the countryside roads just outside our sleepy Oregon town. There was something peaceful about it, the stillness of the forest lining the old highway, the way the air cooled after sundown, the occasional flicker of distant house lights glowing through the mist. I'd memorized every turn, every stretch, every whisper of wind in the trees, until one night, everything changed. That evening started no differently. The sky was smeared with orange and lilac as I set off down the trail. I usually stuck to the paved path that looped around the neighborhood, but something pulled me toward the dirt road that veered off into the deeper woods, a trail I hadn't run since I was a teenager. It was poorly lit, narrow, and unnerving even in daylight. I told myself I needed a change of scenery. Maybe I was just restless. Maybe I was running from something more than boredom. The air thickened as I ran deeper. Trees grew denser, their gnarled limbs casting shadows across the path like fingers. The forest was unusually quiet too, quiet. No birds, no distant rustling, just my own breath and the dull thud of my shoes against the dirt. After about 15 minutes, I slowed to a jog. My lungs ached slightly, and the trail ahead curved into a darker patch of trees. That's when I noticed something strange, a flicker of movement in my peripheral vision. I stopped. To my left, between the trees, a dim light pulsed like a lantern swinging slowly in the fog. I stood still, squinting. It wasn't a flashlight or car headlight. It was colder than that, bluish, white, and faint. I took a step closer to the tree line, heart thudding. The light vanished. A trick of the mist, I told myself. My mind playing games. Maybe a reflection from a distant window? Still, something about the way it blinked out unsettled me. I turned back toward the trail, planning to head home. But as I took my first step, I heard a sound that made the hair on my arms raise a whisper. It wasn't loud, but it was close. Closer than anything should have been in those woods. It sounded like my name. I froze in place. The whisper was soft, barely a breath, but unmistakable. My name, spoken not in a voice I recognized, but one that somehow felt wrong, as if mimicking a human tone but missing something vital. Liam. The second time was louder, closer. I spun around, scanning the trees, heart pounding in my throat. There was no one, just the silent woods and that suffocating stillness. No crunch of leaves. No snap of a twig, just a void behind the whisper. I took a shaky step back, then another, trying to convince myself it was my imagination. Stress, lack of sleep. Maybe I just heard the wind shifting through the branches. But the air was dead still. My foot landed on something soft, and I looked down to see a small pile of feathers blackened, matted with something dark. Blood? A dead bird lay at the center, its neck twisted unnaturally. Eyes wide open, as if frozen mid-scream. I stumbled back, gagging. The whisper came again, now with a mocking rhythm. "Liam, come back!" I turned and bolted, sprinting down the trail. The trees blurred around me, branches whipping past like claws. My ears were ringing from my own breathing, but under that I could still hear footsteps. Heavy ones. Not quite human. They weren't running, just walking. Deliberately, like they knew I couldn't outrun them forever. Half a mile later, I reached the paved portion of the trail that looped back to town. My lungs burned, and sweat clung to my face. I didn't stop running until I burst onto the road under the orange glare of a street lamp. Only then did I stop and glance behind me. Nothing. Just the dirt path swallowed by the forest. I bent over, hands on my knees, heart hammering against my ribs. That's when I saw it again. At the edge of the woods, where the shadows thickened, a figure stood just beyond the reach of the street lamp. Still, watching. Its outline was strangital, thin, slightly hunched, like it didn't belong in a human frame. It didn't move, didn't speak, but I felt something from it. Pressure, like it was inside my skull. Not just watching, but sifting through my thoughts. I blinked and it was gone. I stumbled home, locked every door and window, and sat in my kitchen until sunrise, lights blazing. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? It felt like a nightmare that somehow followed me out of sleep. The next night, I swore I wouldn't run again. But when 9 p.m. rolled around, I found myself lacing up my shoes, heart full of dread and something else. Curiosity. I don't know what drew me back out there. Maybe it was some morbid sense of closure, or maybe that thing wanted me to return. I told myself I'd just jog the lit streets this time, avoid the woods altogether, but my legs had other plans. 15 minutes later, I was back on the same path. The night air was heavy, as if the forest was holding its breath. No wind, no bugs, just my footsteps pounding the gravel. I slowed to a walk near the first curve. That's where I'd seen the figure last night. I scanned the trees, nothing, but the silence. It was wrong. Like I was underwater, sound muffled by something unnatural. Then I saw it. At mile marker 1.5, there was someone standing just off the trail. I almost missed him, he was so still. A tall man, facing away from me, arms limp at his sides. He wore a faded gray hoodie and jeans, but something about his posture made my skin crawl. He didn't shift or flinch, not even when I stepped on a loose stone that cracked underfoot. I froze. Something about him was off. His head was tilted upward, like he was listening to something above him in the trees. Slowly, mechanically, his arm rose and pointed down the trail. Not at me, but further into the woods. I whispered, "Hey, are you okay?" No response. I took a cautious step backward. That's when he turned around and I nearly screamed. His face wasn't right. It was a face, technically, but it looked like it had been smeared, like someone had taken wet clay and pushed features into it. Eyes too wide and glassy, mouth too small and wrong, and that starette hit me like a wall. I turned and ran, harder than I ever had before. Branches whipped at my arms, gravel kicked up underfoot. I didn't dare look back, but I could feel him know, it moving. Not running, but gliding, impossibly fast. The trees bent with its passing, or maybe my fear just made it feel that way. Up ahead, the trail forked. I didn't remember it forking. My brain screamed to take the left path wider one, but my body veered right without thinking, as if something had taken control. The forest swallowed me. The trail was barely there now, overgrown and twisting. The temperature dropped. I felt my breath in the air like fog. Every shadow looked like it was watching me, whispering, "Liam, my name again." Voices now, not one, many, familiar ones. My brother's voice, my mother's, even my own, echoing back at me. "Don't turn around." "I didn't. I couldn't. I just kept running." The trail kept twisting under my feet, like it didn't want to be remembered. I should have recognized the turns, the shape of the trees, but it all looked foreign, wrong. No stars, no moon, just a void above the canopy and those whispers growing louder behind me. I didn't know how long I ran. My lungs burned. My legs felt like stone, but I couldn't stop. The name kept coming, Liam, 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 and not from behind anymore, from around me. I broke through a thicket of dead branches and stumbled into a small clearing. The ground was soaked, soft and uneven like swamp mud. A faint blue light pulsed ahead. At first, I thought it was a flashlight, maybe someone had come looking for me. But no, it wasn't that kind of light. It floated, like fog. A cold, bluish shimmer that hovered just above the ground and pulsed in slow, steady beats. I took a step closer. The light receded. Something moved to my left too fast to see. Then to my right, the shadows shifted. I wasn't alone. Shapes danced just beyond the edge of the clearing, flickering in and out of focus. They looked like people, but stretched, blurred, like they were made of static. That's when I noticed the trees. Every single trunk in the clearing had a handprint burned into the bark, some small like a child's, some massive, all seared black. Then I heard it again, but closer this time. "Don't turn around!" That same voice. My voice. It came from directly behind me. I was done playing brave. I ran. Again. The woods felt like they were closing in. No matter how far I went, I was still in the same place. That cursed blue light always just a few feet behind me, casting long, jagged shadows ahead. Then, up ahead, I saw the path. The real one. The fork. The real fork. The one I had run 100 times before. It was like stepping back into reality. The trail was worn, familiar. A distant porch light glowed through the trees like a beacon. I didn't question it. I sprinted, lungs wheezing, until the woods finally broke open into the edge of my neighborhood. I didn't stop until I slammed into my front door. I locked every window, every door, turned on every light. My parents were asleep. I didn't wake them. What would I even say? Hey, I followed a trail that doesn't exist and found my own voice in the trees? I stayed up the rest of the night, staring out the window toward the forest. Nothing moved. No blue light. No whispers. But right before dawn, I swear I saw a Chapital and still watching from the tree line. The exact spot where the path disappears into the woods. It didn't move. It didn't come closer, but I knew it saw me. The next day, everything looked normal. The sun was shining. Birds chirped like nothing ever happened. But I didn't go near the forest. Not even close. I kept telling myself I was just exhausted. Maybe it was a dream, a panic-induced hallucination. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that floating blue light, and that thing that wore my voice. I didn't talk to Jay that day. I didn't run. I barely ate. I just watched the tree line from the safety of my room, waiting for some sign that it was all real. I didn't have to wait long. That evening, around 7 p.m., Jay showed up. He knocked once, then let himself in like he always did. "Dude, where the hell were you last night?" he asked, dropping his bag by the door. I waited like 20 minutes by the main road. My mouth went dry. You didn't see me?" Jay raised an eyebrow. "No. I even called you like 6 times. You okay?" I pulled out my phone. 0 missed calls, 0 texts. I told him what happened. Everything. The looped trail, the whispers, the voice, the blue light. Jay didn't laugh. Not once. Instead, he got pale. Real pale. "I didn't want to say anything," he started. "But something weird happened to me too, last week. I was running the same trail while you were sick, and I swear, I ended up back at the same clearing 3 times. Like, no matter what direction I took, I came back to the same spot." "What clearing?" I asked. He hesitated. "It had this old stump in the middle. Looked burned. Like it had been hit by lightning or something. It just didn't feel right. I didn't hear voices, but I got this insane pressure in my head, like something wanted me to turn back. A chill went through me. That stump sounded exactly like the center of the clearing I had passed through with the floating light." We sat in silence for a while. Then Jay said, "There's something in that forest, man. Something old. I don't think we should ever go back there." I agreed. 100%. And for a few days, we didn't. But curiosity is a monster. And monsters whisper. 3 days later, I woke up again at 4:13 a.m. Exactly the same time as before. This time, I wasn't sweating. I wasn't panicking. I was calm. I sat up and looked at the window. The woods were glowing. Faint blue light. Not in the sky. Not a star. It was low, moving, closer than before. It was back. I stood up, heart pounding in my ears. I told myself not to go outside, not to follow it. But my legs moved on their own. I didn't even grab shoes. I just opened the door and stepped into the night. The night was colder than it should have been for early fall. The air clung to my skin like frost, sharp and dry. The grass beneath my bare feet was wet, but I didn't feel it. All I could focus on was the glowing light drifting between the trees. It pulsed faintly, not like a flame, but like it was breathing. Slow, steady, alive. It moved deeper into the woods, and I followed. Branches scratched my arms as I brushed past them. Thorns pulled at my pajama pants. I didn't care. The light stayed just far enough to keep me chasing it, always out of reach. It weaved through trees I didn't recognize, even though I knew this forest like my own backyard. It led me over a stream that didn't exist on any map, through a gully that felt too deep, too cold. At one point, I stepped on something soft that squished beneath my foot. I didn't look down. Eventually, the trees thinned, and I stepped into a clearing. It was the same one Jay had described. A blackened stump stood in the center, scorched and ancient. But now, it pulsed with blue light. The same glow from the floating orb. The same sick color I'd seen in my nightmare. As I stepped forward, the light flickered. Once then, vanished. I froze. The clearing was dead silent. No wind, no bugs, just me and the stump. Then I heard it. A voice. My voice. Whispering, "Help me." I turned slowly. Across the clearing stood me. Same face, same clothes, but something was off. His eyes were too wide, his smile too still, his skin wrong, like wax melting under the surface. He raised a hand and motioned for me to come closer. I didn't move. "I'm you," it whispered. "The real you. You never left this place. You've been here the whole time. Don't you remember?" "No," I said, shaking my head. "I got out. You think you did." His voice cracked and changed, becoming deeper, layered, distorted, like three voices talking at once. "But you never left. You're part of it now." The forest around me changed. The trees turned black. The sky went from midnight blue to pitch void. The stump began to bleed thick, dark liquid dripping from the cracked wood like sap from a wound. I stepped back. The other, me, stepped forward. "You let the light in," it said. "I didn't mean to." "You followed it. You opened the gate." I turned to run, but the forest was gone. Only blackness. A flat, endless field of dark stretching forever. I couldn't even hear my own breathing. Just the soft, wet squelch of steps behind me, and that whisper, "You opened the gate?" Then, a scream. Not Mina. Jay's. Jay's scream tore through the void like a lightning strike. I spun toward the sound, but there was nothing, only the same endless black stretching in all directions. My legs moved on instinct, chasing that voice, willing the ground to form under my feet with each step. "Jay!" I shouted, but my voice felt muted, like shouting into a vacuum. Again his voice, distant now. "Don't follow it!" That chilled me more than the darkness. "Jay!" "Where are you?" I kept running, unsure if I was making progress or just running in place. It felt like I was floating in a dream, a nightmare that didn't know it had started. Then something shifted. Shapes emerged ahead, pale, humanoid, still. They weren't walking, not moving, just standing in rows. Dozens, maybe hundreds, all facing me. Identical, bald, expressionless. Their skin had that same waxy, too smooth texture as the figure I'd seen in the clearing, and their mouths were open, not wide, just slight enough to emit a low, synchronized hum. It wasn't a song, it wasn't even a chant, it was mourning. Suddenly, their heads snapped to one side in perfect unison, and all eyes locked on me. That was when I understood. They weren't looking at me, they were looking through me. Something was behind me. Very slowly, I turned. It stood 10 feet tall, towering, faceless, and made of wood, like someone had carved a human figure from forest bark and roots, but left it incomplete. Its limbs bent the wrong way. Branches jutted from its spine like jagged wings, and in its center, buried in the bark, was a single glowing eye. Blue, the same light. It took a step forward, and the hum behind me stopped. Silence fell so heavy I could feel it pressing on my eardrums. "Give it back," the creature, Sador, rather, felt. The words didn't come from its mouth. They crawled into my head like vines, growing, tightening. "Give what back?" I shouted, panicking. But I already knew. The dream. The orb. The stump. I had brought something back. Something that wasn't supposed to leave that place. It stepped closer, the ground cracking under its weight. The eye in its chest pulsed faster. It was angry, desperate. Give it back, or take its place. The rows of pale people behind me dropped to their knees and began to scream. Not words just, open-mouthed horror, agony without sound. And then I felt it a pull from my chest, like something inside me was being yanked loose. My vision blurred, my legs gave out. I dropped to my knees, gasping, clawing at my own shirt. The light, it was inside me. I had carried it out. I had been marked. Just as I blacked out, I heard a voice not Jay's, not mine, a whisper, gentle, feminine, but ancient. Sleep now. The forest has not finished with you yet. I gasped for air as I bolted upright. Daylight. Blinding sunlight spilled through the trees, flickering against the canopy like 1,000 fluttering wings. Birds chirped. Wind stirred the leaves above. I was on the forest floor alone. Jay was gone. My rifle was gone. The orb? Nowhere in sight. I touched my chest where I had felt the light inside me. No glow, no pain. Just sweat-drenched clothes and trembling limbs. Had it all been a dream? A hallucination brought on by stress, dehydration, or sheer exhaustion? I wanted to believe that desperately. But as I stood, I noticed the trees around me had changed. Every trunk was scorched black at the base, as if burned from the inside out. The air reeked of ash and rot, despite the forest being alive and green. Something had happened here. Something real. I checked my phone. No service. Dead battery. I began walking in the direction I hoped would take me back to my truck. My sense of direction was shot, but the forest's edge had to be somewhere. Hours passed. My legs screamed for rest, but I pushed forward. Then I saw something through the trees, a dirt path. Relief hit me like a wave. I staggered toward it, brushing past low-hanging branches, not caring how many scratches I collected along the way. The path led uphill, and just as I crested the rise, there it was, my truck, parked exactly where I left it, except the door was open. I froze. A low sound echoed from the driver's side. A thud, followed by shuffling. I crouched instinctively, grabbing the nearest thick branch I could find. "Jay?" I called out. No response. I edged closer, circling wide, trying not to step on any dry twigs. I peeked inside. Nothing. The seat was empty. My bag was there, partially opened, but everything else was in place. Except for one thing, a single white feather lay on the driver's seat. Small, too clean, like it had just floated down from a bird that didn't exist in this part of the world. I picked it up without knowing why. As soon as I touched it, a whisper rushed through my mind, not in words, but emotion. Cold, soft, warning. Behind me, something snapped. I turned. Standing at the edge of the forest was a figure, a man. "Jay?" I stepped forward. "Jay?" But as I got closer, I saw it wasn't him. He wore Jay's clothes, but his posture was off. Too stiff, too still. And when I met his eyes, I knew it wasn't him, because there were no eyes. Just deep, black hollows. It turned slowly and walked back into the woods without a word. I didn't follow. I got into my truck, started the engine with shaking hands, and drove. I didn't stop until I hit the highway. I didn't look back. I haven't been to those woods since. Jay never came home. The police called it a disappearance, chalked it up to wild animals or an accident. But I know better. The forest marked him. It marked me. And when I sleep, I still hear the whispers. They're waiting. Weeks passed, but I couldn't let it go. I tried returning to normal life work, errands, even running again, but the shadows clung to me like smoke that wouldn't wash off. I'd look in mirrors and think I saw something flicker behind me. My phone would glitch for a second, and I'd hear static laced with whispers. I stopped sleeping altogether. But what broke me came in the mail. An envelope. No return address. Inside, A single Polaroid photo. It showed the blind, the one I'd sat in with Jay before everything went wrong. But it wasn't how we left it. The tarp was torn, the metal frame twisted. Burn marks scorched the edges of the photograph, and sitting cross-legged in the center of the frame was a figure unmistakably Jay, except he was different. His head was tilted at an unnatural angle, his mouth slack like a puppet's, and his eyes just voids. That same blackness I saw in the fake Jay that day at the truck. On the back of the photo, written in smudged ink, "You were supposed to stay." I dropped it and immediately started packing. Clothes, cash, keys, I didn't care where I went, just as long as it wasn't here. That night, while loading my truck, I noticed headlights pulling into my driveway. No one had told anyone where I was going. The car was unmarked. Old, like a 90s sedan with faded black paint. The engine died. The lights stayed on. I waited at the window. Minutes passed. Finally, the driver's door opened. A man stepped out. He looked ordinary at first: jeans, jacket, baseball cap, mid-40s maybe. But when he moved, it was too smooth. Too calculated. Like he was imitating how humans walk. His head turned, scanning the street. Then he looked directly at my window. Smiled. That smile. Wide. Unnatural. Not angry. Not happy. Just knowing. He raised a hand and tapped 2 fingers against his temple. Then he got back into the car. The engine roared to life and the vehicle slowly pulled away, vanishing down the street like it had never been there. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my keys twice. I drove through the night. Every highway light felt like an interrogation lamp. Every passing car a threat. Every shadow a finger pointed at me. By morning, I was in another state. I found a small roadside motel and checked in under a fake name. I closed the curtains and curled up with my back against the wall, eyes locked on the door. That night, I dreamt again. I was back in the woods. Jay stood with his back to me, shirtless, whispering into the trees. His spine bent with every word, like the whispers pulled him closer. Then he turned, and the face wasn't his anymore. It was mine. I screamed myself awake. The motel room was freezing. I could see my breath even though the heater was on. The feather from the truck somehow. It was sitting on the pillow beside me. Same shape, same texture, same warning. I knew what it meant. They hadn't finished. Not with Jay, not with me. I didn't go back home after that. I kept driving, changing motels every few nights, tossing my phone in rivers, buying burners from shady gas stations. No social media, no credit cards, no contact with friends or family. I even avoided mirrors. It felt like they were watching, and I could still feel it, whatever it was. Not always near, not even always awake, but always aware. Then, one night, everything came to a head. I was staying in a no-name town, population maybe 200, the kind of place where the diner also sold bait and liquor. I was parked in a dirt lot behind a rundown inn, windows fogged from the cold. I had barely slept in days, too afraid to even close my eyes for long, but that night, it tricked me. I must have dozed off, because I woke to tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Soft. Rhythmic. Like fingernails on glass. My heart instantly thudded to life. The tapping was coming from the inside of the truck. I turned slowly, dread crawling up my spine. Nothing. The cabin was empty. But when I looked out the windshield, I saw them handprints. Dozens of them. Covering the glass. Pressed from the inside, but smeared outward. I bolted. Didn't even start the engine. Just threw the door open and ran into the night. Into the empty parking lot. Behind me, the truck lights flashed once, then shut off. I turned a corner into the alley behind the motel and stopped dead. Jay was there, but not Jay. His eyes were hollow, his body still. No breath, no blink. And behind him something loomed. A shape, 10 feet tall, blacker than night. It looked like a man, but wrong. like something had studied a human skeleton and built one from memory, using smoke and old bones. It opened its mouth and spoke, not aloud but inside my head. "You ran. You left him." I couldn't move, couldn't speak. "You were marked. He took your place." Jay's body stepped forward jerky, puppet-like. He reached toward me. I fell to the ground, crawling backward, whispering apologies, prayers, curses. Then the voice shifted. "But the woods never forget." A searing cold ripped through me, like something inside was being peeled away. I blacked out. When I woke, it was dawn. I was lying in the alley, alone. The truck was gone. The motel clerk said no one ever saw me arrive. My ID was missing. So was my cash. All that remained in my jacket pocket was the feather, and carved into the back of my hand like a brand, "Stay." I never went near woods again. I moved to the city. Lights, noise, crowds, I need them. They keep me grounded, keep the shadows at bay. Or maybe they just distract me long enough to pretend nothing ever happened. But every now and then, when I close my eyes, I still hear them whispering. And I wonder how long I really have before they come collect what's theirs.